Good evening. I call the June the 28th, 2001 North Augusta City Council study session to order. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Clifford.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Tonight we have two items on our list for our study session. We do not have a City Council meeting next week because of the 4th of July holiday, so we will not be reviewing the agenda as we normally do. So the two items today, first will be a presentation by North Augusta Forward about the downtown corridor, and then our Finance Director, Cammie Hayes, will have a second presentation about budget cycle for fiscal year 22. So with that, I will turn it over to North Augusta Forward and Avery for a presentation.
You can.
I think so.
It's for the live stream is why we need your voice.
Yeah, I'm just gonna with. I know. I think I might. Yeah, I'm real tall. I think that's perfect. No, it's good. I think. No, I don't want it off the stand. I might get wild. Okay. Can y'all hear me?
It's for the live stream.
Okay, but yeah, that's what I said. Okay, let me get situated here.
Put that in.
Can you, is it good now, you think? Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys having me this evening. As JD reminded me, some of you folks have already heard some of this information that we've presented before, but I recently provided you guys with a copy of the roadmap plan. And again, some of you guys were able to participate with the Main Street team when they were here to create that plan. So this will be a refresher mostly, and then just a kind of a high-level overview of the roadmap. I'm sure all of you have read it several times, cover to cover. But in case you missed something, I'm going to just hit all of the high points for you and see if I can answer any questions. As well as at the end, I'm going to give you a report from the design committee on a streetscape amenities project that they've been working on as a recommendation. So I have to remember to use my clicker because I'm pen and paper. So Main Street, the movement. So many of you know, again, exactly what this means, but Main Street is a national program administered at the state level, but powered at the local level through the community. So this is, and I forget, you guys have these screens in front of you, right? Oh. Well, you can be kind of craney to turn that way. I could tell y'all weren't looking at anything, so. And I know I'm not that interesting to watch all. All right, well, I'm going to keep going through these little things real quick so that we don't hold things up. But Main Street Movement is the movement leading voice for preservation-based economic development and community revitalization across the country. So that's just a reminder of the big picture of what we're talking about. Main Street Approach is time-tested framework for community-driven. JD and I had all this worked out, I promise. Not his fault. And anyway, Main Street Approach is a time-tested framework for community-driven, comprehensive revitalization. I guess you guys still can't see it? Okay. Most importantly, it's locally powered. So what that means is the small businesses are the lifeblood of our local economy. So with the small businesses, the leadership from the city level, and the Main Street organization leadership all coming together with volunteers and citizens is what makes it happen. Main Street is economic impact. This is just an example of some of the reinvestment statistics on the national level, and each year we provide these same statistics for our community to the state level. So out of all of that, the Main Street Approach, we had the Main Street team come in, subject matter experts, to review our local economy, our downtown, and make recommendations as to what we should be doing. So they provided us with what's called a visual strategic plan, and said most simply, it is a roadmap to guide the near-term efforts of strategic partners tasked with implementing plans, projects, and initiatives that are focused on thoughtful downtown economic development and appropriate physical realm revitalization. And I put these pictures up here just so you can see. There's lots of pictures and lots of maps in the roadmap plan, because that is the visual nature of what they're trying to help us accomplish. And the maps in the roadmap, I definitely enlarged those for you guys so you could see. They're labeled. It's very intentional as to what we're tasked with doing in each initiative. So they broke it down into 3 categories: market analysis, refining downtown, and getting organized. So again, I'm going to go through each level of what we're talking about here at a high level. So if you have questions, stop me, or you can wait till then, whatever you're most comfortable with, but I'm totally fine with you stopping me to ask questions. So the first area is market analysis, and they did a deep dive into all the analytics related to our community to tell us where the leakage is and what opportunities we have. And in your roadmap book that you have, there's a huge section of information related to this, but this kind of just sums it all up. So I didn't go into any detail more than this. Sorry, I thought I had somebody coming in hot on the backside.
You did. Hey, Avery, can I ask you to just pause just for a moment? We're going to recalibrate our IT systems to make sure we're all good here, so the council members aren't showing you their back, so we can all do this in a more cohesive manner. So just one moment, and we're going to get our act together here.
Y'all have any questions at this point? Keep us on track. I'm trying to keep us on track. Okay, you good?
I think we're good.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for that.
No problem.
All right, so back to this. So there's lots of data in the report. There's also a appendix that has a 200-page report of a deep dive into where every ounce of this information comes from, okay? So it's very granular, and you're welcome to that. There's a link in that report, but I can provide a printed report to you as well, because it has got everything. Every recommendation that the team made is rooted in this information and this data and these numbers. So this isn't something they just pulled out of the sky. So if you'll see in the leakage area, that's just telling you what money we're losing in our community that's going elsewhere within a 30-minute drive time, okay? So it's a significant amount of money that we're losing. So what does that mean? Where are the opportunities? So you can just look in that far right-hand column, and it tells you we can have at least 5 more restaurants, 8 food-related businesses, and that might be fast casual type opportunities as well. Co-op style or specialty food, farmers market food hall concept, 2 to 3 targeted clothing stores, some home furnishing, as well as 3 to 4 additional stores in the floral gifts and art range, okay? So there's lots of opportunity for downtown, and these numbers prove that. One interesting fact that isn't represented here is where we were kind of thriving, so to speak, and they found it very interesting that grocery stores and gas stations bring a ton of people into our community to spend money. So the reason that's interesting in terms of downtown is we have 2 gas stations in downtown, and we know that people out of Augusta are coming in to use that. So any opportunity we have to help those folks, give them the opportunity to revitalize their locations, because they're not the most beautiful. They don't necessarily fit into the fabric of downtown, and if they are interested in helping us do that, then we definitely need to help them, because it's a driver of people to our community. Market conclusion. So what all this means is North Augusta's success of downtown hinges on food-related retail. That will help the retail businesses grow. And as we all know, the community is expected to grow in population. Income levels are good, and we have underserved areas. So all that says there's opportunity. Again, if you have any more questions about the market analysis or want that really granular information, yes.
I don't disagree with any of what it said. The problem is, how do we make restaurants come to downtown?
Well, and we have that. We have
Okay.
ways to do that.
All right.
They definitely didn't just give us tips.
Okay.
There's plans in there to help execute everything that is in here.
Okay.
So, and we have opportunities to work towards that for sure. Refining downtown. So, oh yeah. Well, we have opportunities on underdeveloped land or undeveloped land that we can use, and we will get, yeah, and we'll get to some, no, Georgia Avenue, West Avenue, all the way down to Center Street, yeah. So we have lots of opportunity there, and I'll show you some, Ms. Pat, when we get further in. But thank y'all for your questions. Refining downtown. So this gets into what are simple investments that can make a maximum impact. So design elements, traffic calming to help pedestrians feel more comfortable and safe, parking opportunities, gateway sites, linkages and connections, facade enhancements, and vibrancy amenities. And I'm just going to touch on each of these briefly. Again, it goes into more detail in your book. But opportunities for traffic calming, I think we can all agree on West and Georgia, there's some opportunity there to explore. Parking options, they laid out a plan and mapped out how many additional parking spots we could gain through some interesting partnerships. Linkages, we want to be able to connect all areas of downtown to the Greenway, to the riverfront, and allow people to use the space. Again, gateway sites in the old carpet shop building are an opportunity to add some of those businesses that we discussed. And then facades. So when we're talking about traffic calming, they gave this illustration in this picture where you can see this, the more blank picture was the picture they took the day they were here. They have the opportunity to Photoshop a lot of things in to make it look nice and pretty, but it's just to give an image of what it could be like if we start somewhere, right? So they added banners, they added art, a mural, the trees, flowers, and the crosswalks are more delineated than they were in the previous picture. So, and we do appreciate you guys have already started helping us with the crosswalk situation at that particular corner, which has been super. So this is just a really good example of how we can visually narrow the street with trees and plantings to slow traffic. Again, this is another example of visually narrowing the streets, and really this just sets the tone for downtown and what people experience when they enter. Also, facade grants. The city thankfully does have a facade grant program, and many of the businesses use that and are very thankful for it. But recently, if you all remember, there was a Pella Windows business on Georgia Avenue, and when the owner purchased it, they used the facade grant to create the collective and add the awning to the front of the building. It just makes a huge difference. And not only is the exterior good, but the business that's inside it's very good for downtown. It's a shared space opportunity for entrepreneurs, which then again leads to hopefully people expanding into their own business. Vibrancy amenities. So they call it downtown stickability, but what they're saying by that is, do we offer multi-generational opportunities for people to experience our downtown? We want young folks, older folks, and everything in between to be able to experience downtown and have fun. Experiences are important because that's what people remember, and that's how they make memories with their families and friends. So we want to make sure we're activating and bringing points of interest. North Augusta Port actually has games like this to lend the businesses when they have events, and it's really popular for the families to be able to experience this. Refining downtown. This is a map that you really can't see that well, but it's in your book. But I did pull out the key just to show you the pedestrian and bike connections. The team was very thoughtful in this, and they wanted to not use a singular approach to connectivity, but instead use a whole network of opportunity for people to connect to downtown. So through the alleys, through the Greenway, down from the river into the park, near the dog park and butterfly garden. This is vitally important for getting folks to move between downtown, the Greenway, and the riverfront, and providing these opportunities that are widely known. Again, this is just showing an opportunity for connection to the riverfront and the Greenway. Again, the picture on the left is the day they were here, and the picture on the right was with them adding art amenities, banners to show that you're headed to the Greenway, and seating and trash cans, benches, things of that nature to activate that space and make it not such a long haul up that hill. Alleyways, they were very strategic strategic in how they approach the alley system. And this is just an example of when we get to that point where we want to address that. It could look very different in certain areas. There's not a one-size-fits-all for our alley system, but these are just some treatments we could consider when we're doing that. This is the corner that many of you guys recognize. I mean, it doesn't look like this, not yet anyway. But this is the corner at the carpet shop and the vacant parcel across from the municipal building. And they, through the data that I showed you earlier, gave us a plan for a very mixed-use opportunity here to put retail, office, and food businesses. One being a food hall and another a full-service restaurant. So this meets some of the needs that we were talking about earlier and gives opportunity for new business to come in. It improves the function of downtown and creates economic development opportunities. And that's what's important, obviously, through the Main Street program and to North Augusta Forward. But we own the carpet shop property or the roller rink, depending on which generation you come from as to what you remember it as. But we wanted to preserve that. Good, Pat. We wanted to preserve that building and preserve historic buildings when we can in downtown is very important. And so we have invested in that property and put a new roof on it to make sure that when the time is right for development, that building stays. And we also own property on Bluff Avenue, and this will show you the two parcels I was just talking about on the left bottom, and then the Bluff Avenue parcels. And these are, again, key parcels in downtown, and we've had investors approach us on both sites about opportunities to develop those. But what we've been waiting on is the opportunity to work with the city in a strategic manner on these parcels to make sure that we are, providing proper and fostering proper development in these areas. Because it's not just what we think, we need to have a collective vision for what that should look like. Okay, getting organized. The fun part, getting down to work. So this is something that just a little message that we provided when we first got into the Main Street program, and we wanted people to know what we were doing. So it just tells you that we're focused on enhancing the quality of life in North Augusta. As you know, that's part of our vision. And then why we became Main Street members. We feel like downtown is the heart and soul of our community, that downtown revitalization has to be locally powered, and downtown has unique character that connects our past to our future. So this was just an informative piece that we created, and it helped us also determine what the businesses need and let them know what we were doing, and that's how we came up with the Merchants Alliance. Getting organized in terms of a clear mission and a vibrant district. So we just went over a lot of information about all of these things that we need to be doing, and then somebody says, well, how do we do that, right? So the 4-point approach in Main Street is how you get everything done. So this is the framework in which we use. So economic vitality obviously focuses on capital, incentives, and other economic and financial tools to assist new and existing businesses, catalyze property development, and create a supportive environment for entrepreneurs and innovators that drive local economies, because we know that's what drives it. Design, and we're going to talk about this just in a couple of minutes, but that supports the community's transformation by enhancing the physical and visual assets that set the commercial district apart. Promotion, obviously, is promoting downtown and branding, positions the downtown as the center of the community and the hub of economic activity while creating a positive image that showcases the community's unique characteristics. An organization which we have through our executive committee involves creating a strong foundation for a sustainable revitalization effort, and including cultivating partnerships, community involvement, and resources for the district. So again, this all comes back to it being very community driven and with local leadership from the city and the business owners. So I told you about the Downtown Merchants Alliance, which kind of came out of us becoming Main Street members and going to the businesses saying, what can we do? What do you guys want to see? It was established in 2019. It was a very grassroots, organic process that we went through. Initially, we had 4 people sitting around the big conference room table to figure it all out. So it's a very small group, but what we determined that day is that we needed to go to businesses, invite businesses. North Augusta Board sent out emails and letters to the businesses. So it grew over time, and now we have 39 businesses participating, but we want everybody participating. So it's still growing, and we're still reaching out to folks. And Third Thursday came out of the Merchants Alliance, and we're now getting ready to grow into additional events. But we want every business engaged in that. Pop Forward Challenge. This is another way to attract businesses. The team laid out a plan for this. It's very Shark Tank-like. So we have capital that we would invest in a business if we feel like it's the right fit for downtown, and it would be, help that business get off the ground and move forward. So this is part of the roadmap plan as well, and you can read more information about it in there. Marketing and branding. So there's a whole section in the book that goes through every detail of marketing and branding and what things should look like and feel like when we're promoting the area. And tourism is a huge opportunity for us. So we feel like this is very important to have a clear and concise message when we're talking about downtown, not only to attract locals, but visitors as well. So this, I'm just going to show you a few examples of what they had. They also did some banners with branding to connect the areas that we're trying to connect and make people realize that they're in one cohesive space, that it's not separated as it sometimes does feel. And these are just example ads that we can use for promoting the Greenway, promoting boutiques. This is an example for High Cotton, and of course Pink Dipper, Taste of Your Childhood, which everybody loves. So we're positioned to do some tourism branding and marketing for downtown through this. And then getting organized in terms of us and what we need to do as the organization and in conjunction with the city. So successful revitalization is achieved and sustained only when those that benefit from a vital community are engaged in guiding and supporting the process, and that's most important. Every aspect of the Main Street approach depends on a productive effort to work with downtown and the community leaders to address revitalization. And again, it's totally a community-driven approach that takes, all hands on decks. Getting organized, this is just a quote that I thought kind of might help us frame where we're going here. And coming together is the beginning, which is where we are now. Keeping together is progress, and working together is success. So as I mentioned, North Augusta Board wants to partner with the city and be very strategic in what we're doing in downtown so that we all are on the same page and we know it's a collaborative effort and a common vision. But I'm going to pause there for just a second before I launch into the Design Committee Streetscape Amenities Plan to see if you guys have any questions, more questions around the roadmap.
These aren't questions, but these are, matter of fact, Tim Thornton, one of our city investigators, approached me, this has been a year ago, and said, why don't, and I saw that on one of the pictures, some of your businesses have murals, on the wall, and I saw that right there by the Pink Dipper. So he said that would be a good idea, that.
Absolutely.
And then there's a young man in North Augusta named Joseph Stanek. He's from North Augusta, but he's been in New York, played on Broadway, and he's moved back home. And he is really into the arts and things, so he would be. And then another young lady, looking at the old skating ring, approached me about wanting to open a skating ring back in North Augusta. I mean, these, are big things, but essentially what you're saying, that's 3 people I've talked to within, Tim's been about a year, but the rest of them within the last month.
Well, absolutely.
Pat, we actually, when we did the last signed ordinance on planning commission that y'all approved, we actually now have the ability to do murals.
Okay.
And again, I think the timing's right because we've had that, but now it's just a matter of saying, hey, it's a priority and let's allow them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think timing's right.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that's funny that he had thought about that a year ago.
Well,
Tim
and
Thornton.
these are everybody's
police
ideas.
officer, but
exactly.
he said that would be so wonderful. We have a place on our business that's just a blank wall.
We can fill it up. JD's dying to do a mural. So, so Pat, if you don't mind, when you have folks approach you like that, if you'll just let me know, because we love to plug folks in like that on our committee. Please, I would love to. Thank you very much. Well, I would love to talk to him and include him on our committee. Anybody else? Questions, thoughts?
Situation, the wayfinding sign.
I'm not touching
Not
on
yet.
that,
Go
but
ahead.
no, I'm happy to. It's just not in this presentation.
I'll wait.
Okay, I actually asked somebody that recently, because we did the wayfinding
Yeah.
information a while back, and there was some discussion, but I don't know where that ended. But that's very important in plugging into the
I'll wait.
overall plan. Anything else? All right, so I'm going to introduce you guys really quickly to our design committee. They spent a lot of time and effort and energy on creating this plan. We've met, talked about what the roadmap suggested. We have a team of folks with varying backgrounds that are very important to the process of picking out and designing this. And we somehow picked the hottest evening of the summer to walk around for a couple of hours to place benches and trash cans. So they're in it to win it. So I just want to introduce those guys to you guys really quickly. So Joanne, Mackie, and Rick and Amanda, Beverly Thurman, and Jenny and Jesse. So as you can see, very, very different backgrounds. Property owner, lives downtown, another downtown resident, designer, an architect, and a realtor and board member. So very, very important to have a mixed group of folks that can come from all angles to talk about what we're trying to accomplish. So, design committee, they focus on the program area that concentrates on appearance and function of everything that is visual in downtown. Design improvements are important to economic revitalization, and the appearance of downtown is the first visual impression visitors get, and visual impressions shape the visitor perceptions and experiences. So it's very important. You know, when we get to talking about this, it's easy to think, oh yeah, that's great to have somewhere to throw your trash, because we don't have that right now. But it also is about what people experience when they're in a space. So all of the elements come together to create that. So this is our attempt to kind of Photoshop some of the images in and the products in that we're suggesting. So this is Georgia Avenue, and it's kind of hard to see, but if you look along the sidewalk, you'll see baskets, flower baskets on the light poles, and the addition of branded banners. This just gives you a kind of an idea of how this would look going up Georgia Avenue. And when we were looking at this, we talked about flower pots, and then we landed on flower baskets on the light poles because the sidewalks vary in different areas of downtown. And so it's not easy to make a comprehensive look and feel to the space without using this. So that's how we came up with that. And this gives you an idea of what it would look like on Buena Vista and West Avenue. And at every four-way stop, we are recommending that the flower baskets be on all four corners just to create that impact visually, and that the banners be on every other post going down the sidewalk with a flower pot and then a banner, so that they're not together. In these images, it does show that just to give you the visual, but that is not specifically what we're recommending.
That's
So
a possible calming technique.
It is.
Okay.
Yep, all of this plays into, thank you, Britton, all of this plays into the traffic calming. Again, those big trees that they showed were wonderful in the picture, but those are not that easy to get, where this is more attainable for us, and it will create that impact visually. And then this is just kind of an up-close shot of what it would look like for the flower baskets, the banners. You see a couple of bike racks, trash cans, and we want trash cans on every intersection corner, just opposing corners. So 2 trash cans at every intersection, so that people learn that if they just walk to that next section, there'll be a trash can for them to use, instead of, you know, putting them at odd places. Again, just kind of giving you an idea of what it looks like. Benches, so we spent a good bit of time in this park, actually. It was very nice green space. There's trees on the roadside that you could see that protect it a little bit so that people would feel safe in this area. We want to create some conversation areas where people can sit, kids can play, and we chose the backless benches for several reasons, but one, to allow people to sit in any direction that they choose to. And this is that same park across the street, and we would add benches over there as well. This is the mural that we were talking about on the side of Salon 512. The group, when it comes to design, as Pat mentioned, it is important to add art and murals to a space. So this is just an example that April King came up with when she was working with the Leadership North Augusta class on a project that we were looking forward to doing, but realized at the time there were some roadblocks with it. So we still have it on the radar. So any questions about streetscape amenities?
Go back to the park one, because I think the officer, that I think we all agree this is the most unutilized piece of green space we have downtown. And I know I've talked to the folks at the Legion, and to be honest with you, this would be a great thing where you talked about those stickability, to be able, when we have the third Thursday or other events, to have things for kids to hang out there. And what it is, it's a great opportunity for the Legion, because it allows people to look at the different histories of different battles and wars. So that this is a way I would think we could really let people realize we have green space downtown.
And there's actually a lot more. I know you know
Yes,
that, but
yeah.
This one's just really obvious and low-hanging fruit, if you will. So yeah, we spent a lot of time. The benches actually aren't positioned this way in our plan, but for the purpose of you being able to see them from different angles, we did it this way. But yeah, we put a lot of thought into this park and how it should look.
When David and I were when we did the council went out, we divided up and went to third Thursday. David and I, we were walking down by over there where the collective was, and there was a couple coming up. They just gone to the restaurant and taken some food. And the response was, we're trying to find a place to eat it. So we sent them over to Shop 3130 because y'all had a guy playing guitar. They said, you can sit, they'll let you sit in the grass.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, we want people to come downtown, but
Right.
we don't have a place for them to sit. So this is great.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, too, I think it's fantastic as the council member up here with the young children on board. When we come down to third Thursday, it's nice to kind of have that slowing down environment. And I think adding small amenities like this are a quick change to see that change is coming, too, and helping create an environment so that small businesses can thrive. I think that's what us as city members need to work towards, is continuing to enhance the environment of downtown. And I think these are small ways to do it quickly, even. So I think it's great. Yeah.
It's like Britton said, it accomplishes many things. The stickability factor, and then the traffic calming, and then just letting people experience the space in a different way than they have, and that they feel is appropriate in a downtown.
Now, it's a grandmama now. I don't think it scares me that park is so close to George Avenue.
Well, and it is, and that's why,
I mean,
like I
that
said, the benches
particular
wouldn't
part now.
be where they are.
Yeah.
This first one, they're actually set back against that plant lining.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time there and thought about it from grandparents,
Yeah,
mothers, different perspectives to say this would allow us to corral the children
Yeah.
if we sit
corral
behind them and let them play out ahead towards the bushes. So
Right.
we did think about things of that nature, but I appreciate you bringing it up.
And one thing, and I know this might not be in stone here, but the banners, and looking at Charles Martin back there, Charles, you remember how we worked on our little logo, North Augusta, South Carolina? I mean, that went on forever, it seemed like. But I've noticed on the banners, would we do away with that, North Augusta, South Carolina's riverfront? I mean,
No.
because while we did that, we wanted, when people think of North Augusta, when you think of Aiken, it was lobster race and all that kind of stuff. Aiken's Macon. And when we talked about that years ago, we wanted, when you say North Augusta, if you're at Myrtle Beach, oh, that's South Carolina's riverfront.
Right.
And so that's why, I didn't want to do away with that either.
No, and again, we're just trying to show and hear potential options, but we definitely don't want to do away with, actually, if you'll see in that roadmap plan, the branding and marketing guy gave a nod to North Augusta as being like the pioneer of branding themselves with that. So they recognize that as well. So, no, that we don't want to do that. These would just be, we just want to be more strategic with the banners and more comprehensive. And what is that message we're trying to get out? You know, and be strategic in getting that message out. So,
Avery, how often would you change the banners out?
that's something we want to work with staff on, just to say, you know, what are we trying to accomplish, to Pat's point? What do we want to display in our downtown? And what does that look like from a scheduling standpoint? So, and with the banners that we were showing that are branded, those don't need to be everywhere.
Right.
You know, it can be intermittent and mixed in with other themes, but we do want to be thoughtful in what that theme is.
Okay, have you thought about expanding beyond the downtown area with the banners?
Certainly, I think that's a great idea.
At the focal points where you come into the city, for example?
Right, I do. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Okay,
Gateway areas.
right.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Any other questions?
I have one on the flowers. How do you maintain those?
Oh, I have another slide for y'all. So I'm glad you asked that, because this is the last slide that I got derailed on. So these are the components that we mentioned to you, just kind of up close shot of what we're recommending for various reasons. The baskets in this picture are probably more like what they would look like. These are self-watering baskets.
Okay.
So many Main Street communities are using these right now in their downtowns and have had great success with them. They're through Earth Planter, and they're a Main Street affiliate. But yeah, we put some thought into that too, so that we're not going to ask you to go up there and water them real often. So, but you know, the bike racks. To your point, Pat, there were some circular bike racks that we looked at that we could see kids doing flips around. So we wanted to be thoughtful of that and not use anything that looks like gymnastics. And again, I told you about the benches and the trash cans. We made sure we selected one with a dome lid to keep critters and rain out of the basket in the trash can.
Big thing, trash cans, because when you've got trash and you've got to walk 3 blocks to throw it away, half time it's going to go on the street.
Yeah, it is. Yep. We actually picked up some while we were out walking around that day.
I met him.
Huh. Who is
Yeah, there was a couple at the last third Thursday, and I saw them at the chamber. And there were pop-up thing as we were walking around. They were coming down by First Citizens. And I was leaving Grace's music thing. I noticed he had this cup in his hand. We were talking. I said, "Yeah, you know, we're looking to try to put some amenities." And his wife goes, "He's been holding that cup for the last 20 minutes." I've got a picture of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, seriously. But anyway, so trash cans. I mean, it's
trash
simple.
cans are a must.
Yep. Like I say, we thought about and looked as we were walking around and feel like if we put them at the intersection corners, that will allow people plenty of opportunity to get rid of their trash. Any other questions?
Well, and I guess that goes back to Bob's question on watering the plants. Who would empty all the trash cans? Oh, they self-empty. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Eric. Great point.
Well, can I have one of those at my house, please?
Some robotic stuff
Yeah.
going on with that. No, but we would definitely have to work with staff and figure that out and figure out what that
JD
looks
said
like.
he'd volunteer to go up there.
Yeah, after you do the mural, let him get that mural
JD?
done first.
I think there are kind of two parts of what Main Street has shown us tonight. Is what you've seen with the roadmap is that's where I would, like us to consider, that's something I think over the next couple months, the Main Street folks need to work with staff and start looking at maybe a memorandum of understanding to be able to say, okay, exactly what does it look like? And then I think the piece that is a call to action tonight, we can't vote tonight, but what I'm saying is that with some of the possibility of what can happen mid-year, it'd be nice if, we could get a consensus, if there's consensus from council to Jim and Rachel to say, hey, we like the benches, the trash cans, the bike racks, the water baskets, and let them kind of work through what that looks like. as far as with the Main Street, as far as this many in this year versus what we do in the budget. So I think we needed a comprehensive roadmap because, you know, people talk all the time about, oh, we need to have a plan. This is the plan.
It is.
And quite frankly, you know, there's an old saying about when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So I think we have a council who's ready, and I think this is definitely a direction we ought to consider moving forward. So I'll just open it up as far as any comments or thoughts you have. If ever want to say anything.
I would just say I agree. I think that this is a good starting point and a effort to show that we're starting and then moving towards that plan in the future. I think this is a nice step to kind of add to our downtown and work towards that revitalization. Or that's not really the word. It's already going great, but adding to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I agree. And the good thing about that plan is it walks through how to accomplish the initiatives. It's not just tips and ideas. There's actually action plans to get it accomplished. So
And the
working
amenities
together
is-
is the main thing.
And the amenities is part of the 100-day plan, so I think the timing is pretty
Yeah.
attractive.
I concur, we do need to consider the amenities that would be desirable for this as well as for the riverfront. We should use the same amenities down on around the amphitheater, the greenway, or wherever we want to put it. One question I do have, this plan, I noticed there's several references to the downtown greenway project. How much consideration was given to incorporate the downtown greenway into this overall plan?
So they had, at the time when they came, we provided them with the original plan from Alta for the downtown Greenway connector. So they factored that in, but it was after that Blake came back
That's right.
and did the phase one. But it aligns very nicely, ironically, or maybe not so ironically, with their plan. I mean, it factors in that connectivity and connecting all points is what they mentioned on that pedestrian and bike map.
Right.
So that would be an initial connection point, but what they're saying is don't stop there, continue to connect through your system anywhere possible and through that alley system. So
Thank you.
that aligns very nicely.
I'm glad to see they're mirroring in each other, so.
Right.
Thank you.
I just had a couple comments or questions. The last time that y'all presented to us, I don't remember when it was,
About a year and a half.
that I believe that the resolution was for us to go ahead and sign with Main Street program and participate in funding it. That was the last presentation we had, correct?
That was the initial presentation where I came and said, will you guys sign off on this program? North Augusta Forward was funding it, so we weren't asking for funding, but we just needed the city to say we support this type of plan.
Okay.
Then we got the plan, and I came back and presented information around that, but the kind of MOU or MOA, or you guys said, yeah, we want to do this, but we just never got
So-
down to business.
When you came back and presented to us, I thought we agreed and put some funding towards the study.
North Augusta
We never
Forward
put any
funded.
money towards the study.
City hadn't done anything to do with this
Okay.
at all.
There's been no funding.
So when was the study complete?
2019.
Okay, then my next question is, why has it been so long since we became,
Great
we
question.
addressed this? I mean, we said
Why am I
in
back?
2019 that we wanted to participate in the program.
Yeah,
So
but
now
we
we're in
never-
2021 and we're now saying it's a great idea. Well, we said in 2019 it was a great idea.
Yeah, but we never came together and actually worked with staff to complete any of the initiatives.
But I
that
thought that was the
opportunity.
resolution in 2019 was that we agreed to do that back then. Am I wrong? Am I misunderstanding? In 2019, that's what happened?
Yeah, I mean, you would,
I'm like David. How long have you been with North Augusta Forward? That'll tell because you came right when you joined North Augusta
Correct.
Forward.
correct. And
And
that
what
was
year
the
was that?
initial plan to say, will you guys support a Main Street program? You
Okay.
weren't signing off on anything other than that. It was a part of the application process that had to happen.
Okay.
So the city has to support it.
Well, then I'll,
But that's just saying we think it's a great idea. That's not saying we're gonna work alongside you and have a collaborative effort.
I thought that's
partner.
what our resolution was in 2019.
Yeah, I
So
did
I'm just
too.
saying,
Been on paper, but
But
in
David,
theory.
I'm just
David, the
saying-
question is now, are you willing? Are you ready?
Absolutely, but I'm
All right,
saying
perfect.
I was absolutely for it in 2019.
were.
That's what I'm saying. I'm confused on why we're not a year and a half further than we are right now. That's all I'm asking.
Wait, let's keep.
We
That's all
had
I'm
to do we had to play our role at a very grassroots level, and we have accomplished things in the roadmap, but this bigger stuff is not anything we don't want to try to accomplish this by ourselves. Because if we go out and do something and we're not working with you and the city leadership, then you're going to say, well, why'd they go do that? What are they doing, right?
Then of
So-
course my next question is where is the North Augusta Chamber in this whole program? Because we didn't mention downtown North Augusta Chamber of Commerce at all.
So our role is very different than the chamber's role in terms of we are specifically focused on downtown and the Main Street approach, whereas they're a more overarching small business for the entire city. So they continue to work with their base in downtown North Augusta just like we do. But it's very different in terms of we're not a membership program. So anybody that participates in the Merchants Alliance is doing it voluntarily. We're not a member-based program like the chamber. So it's
Avery,
very
It
different.
just seems
Can you
like
talk about,
they're-
maybe tell about Jenny and Stop 3130, how they're on both roles?
I just sort of thought there would have been a great
Are they involved
partnership.
with the chamber in Main Street?
Yeah.
So just
And yeah,
tell a
that's what
little
I'm
bit.
saying.
yeah.
There's businesses that are definitely downtown businesses that are a part of the chamber.
Okay.
One doesn't take away from the other. They're
I'm
two
not
different
saying they
roles.
do. I'm just asking. It just seems like the chamber would have been a key partner in this whole program.
And they were initially, she participated in the roadmap process as well.
Uh-huh.
But again, there hadn't been a whole lot of effort from a collaborative standpoint simply because the opportunity wasn't there.
Okay.
Avery,
I just think the city dropped the ball.
Well, I wasn't gonna say that, but
That's
you
what happened.
you can do that.
Because if I recall,
I don't understand.
it's been about 2, maybe 2.5 years since this project was presented, because I
Correct.
was one of the strong supporters of it. I had to convince some other members, let's please get on board with
Right.
this, because it can do wonders for the downtown and for our city.
Absolutely.
And,
Well, here's the thing.
Just drop it.
Yeah, at this point, it doesn't really matter. All we know is the day's a new day, and it's a new council, and we're ready. I believe what I'm hearing is we ready to move forward.
Now I've got and this I ain't moving. I say let's move forward
Okay.
with it. I'm all excited too, but I'm gonna still
Very
go
excited.
back to.
I don't want my questions and my concerns.
Yeah, right. We're both.
being
Yeah, yeah.
derogatory. I'm just saying.
And I'm
that
with David
very
on that,
excited.
and
I'm
I
upset
disagree
that
with
we
Bob.
haven't been a year further along.
Right.
That's all.
I mean, this was presented right when me and Kevin got on council, so I mean, that's been at least 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And we have been working on it, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong.
No,
We
no,
have
no.
not been waiting,
Well-
but we were limited in the capacity at which we could work in partnership with the city.
Right.
And that we hope is not a roadblock any longer, but we're ready to partner. and
So,
collaborate.
so the big question I had, I kind of touched on it earlier, Avery, and I don't disagree with any of this, the benches, the trash cans, but, you go up down George Avenue, there's empty buildings. Who's going to fill them? I mean, and I think maybe that's where, I don't disagree. That's like I was asking earlier. How are we going to make businesses come to downtown just because we put up some flower pots and benches and trash cans? I mean, we could do all of this and it's beautiful, but there's no guarantee any business is going to come. And that's what I'm more concerned with is, if we spend all this money beautifying downtown, calming it, this, that, and the other, and then you're still riding by empty buildings.
We have very limited vacancy. I know when you see an empty building, it feels like a lot of them are empty, but that's actually one thing they noted in the report. There's limited vacancy, but there may be different uses that we want to attract.
The
in
par-
downtown.
Right, and that's really my question is how do we attract the people you were talking about earlier,
Right.
the restaurants, well, I know there is a floral shop, but it said a couple of them, some clothing stores.
Right. And I think the
Eric,
thing that y'all are doing with
I'll tell you
code-
how we do it. Part of what the Main Street and North Augusta Fork can help us with is, as you visit other communities, the problem is we have property owners that own Class C space, and unless we get them excited about revitalization of downtown and get them believing that we have a plan, and help them see the benefit of taking a Class C space and investing some money into it to make it a Class A instead of getting several businesses that you probably know of that we probably don't need to be having, but get the type of businesses. And that's where collaborative is. Maybe the city has some ability, but that's where we've got to use the chamber. We've got to use North Augusta Forward. We've got to use other organizations to help us do that.
Oh, I don't disagree.
And we've got a plan. That can be done.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I talk about, Chris Garrison took the old Mingap building. And when Jim and I were up in Travelers Rest, I shared this with them that is a template that we can use throughout the city, because he took that old Mingap building, and what he did was, instead of just fixing it up and trying to fill it, to lease it, he said, how can I be intentional? And if you look at what he did, those 4 businesses all are part of a plan. He got a restaurant on one end. He got great bakery and coffee shop that we need on the other end. And people say, what about AR Workshop? The benefit of AR Workshop is the term is density, because you know what AR does? It brings groups to that business to do crafts and have parties. And you have 15, 20 people. Guess what those 15, 20 people are going to do? They're going to get coffee. They're going to say, oh, my goodness, we have a Taki Junior, Bill? I didn't know we had a Taki Junior. Let's come back next Friday. So that is a template that and I guess the part I was saying is, what I think we can do is, if we get a memorandum of understanding, this is how we can begin to use some other organizations to help us do that. So it's very doable. We just, as a council, have to say it's a priority. And if it's a priority, I promise you we can make it happen.
Oh, well, I have no doubt.
That's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, I have no doubt. But again, I don't want this to be like, if you build it, they will come, and we do all of this, and then we still don't have those businesses. So it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we have the businesses and then say, hey, we're going to do this, or do we just do it? And you follow what I'm saying?
I think it's kind of a simultaneous thing. I think it happens.
Yeah,
at
it
the same
does. It all has to come together as a comprehensive
Right.
plan. But the thing about it is, there are strong businesses in downtown, and they are growing and expanding, and we need to foster that
Oh, yeah.
and help show that that is important to us, and that's what we want. And this is a measure of doing that, and this will attract new businesses. I know
Right.
it's just flowers and baskets and such, but it's important. And then, we explored incentives for property owners, to Britton's point, that we could incentivize them to invest in their space, which will attract the businesses that we want. So it all, goes together in a plan to do so.
Well,
But the code change is helpful too, that you guys are working on. That will be extremely beneficial.
I agree with the mayor. I mean, these simple changes that we can make quickly are going to continue to incentivize the businesses that we have and allow them to continue to thrive, because people are going to continue to come down there. It's new stuff, and we're showing our commitment to them as well, just like, providing parking and everything else we do. So
Stuff up on the picture, I think, could be done relatively easy. I don't know, cost-wise, that'd be something for Jim and Rachel to work on, but I don't see any issues with that. I see that, and it reminds me of walking in downtown Savannah. If you've ever been down there, they got a lot of green spaces. There's trash cans, crosswalks, benches. I mean, there's the games you were showing. That reminded me and Katie went down there when she was about 10 or 11. We just went for a weekend, and they had the big chess games and things like that. I mean, it's really cool, and it keeps you wanting to stay there. I think those are minimal investments on the city's behalf that could be made.
And I've got a couple of things, or 4 things to say here. One of the things, and I've talked about this since we used to talk about the greenway and the alleys, I'm telling you, we have got to include every business. We need, and I know Britton is for this because he's doing it here on city council. We need downtown meetings that businesses can talk and say, I need this. Don't forget your old businesses. I mean, a lot of times these fresh new businesses are lovely, but you've got people, bushes, flowers, and I'm going to just say my husband, downtown. And another thing, parking is horrible in downtown. We've got to solve that problem some way, because who wants to, when I go to Sheila's that I love so much, and I have to park on the side or way over at Your Pie. I say, where are those parking places right in front of the building? I miss them. So we have got to do something about parking. That's to make that a success. Number we got to do something with some of our zoning council, because we were gonna buy the building next to us, and we can't. Because it would be of no value to what we need. So it's gonna be things like that that we as a council are gonna need to do for these businesses to help them. But main thing, Avery, and I'm a people person, and everybody's important to me, that every business is included. I don't care if you're the most fancy business or you're the lowest. Everybody's got to be included in what they want. And like I said, parking. And now, money, when we say we're going to do a partnership, that means we got to come off money to go in with y'all, correct? So when we're doing our budget for the next couple of years, that's got to be, or is this going to be a phase? We go down and put the hanging baskets and trash cans and the crosswalks, and then we move to another area, or what?
So I'll let
Councilwoman, I'll go ahead and address that. So depending on the guidance we get from council, what we will try to do is see what room we have in the 21 budget to be able to tackle some of these things in an incremental way. And then as we are now starting the FY22 budget kickoff, that we would add some of these items as a wedge in the budget for downtown improvements, or however that would look. So I would, to set expectations here from a staff perspective, there are a number of things that can happen here in FY21, but in order to get the full palette of things that are trying to be accomplished, this is really going to be a multi-year effort. I think we can front load some of the amenities early in 21 and 22, but a lot of the stuff is going to take a decent amount of time. So ultimately, again, those are budget decisions you as the council will have to make as we go into our budget cycle. I know Cammie Hayes is going to talk that a little bit here as the second presentation. So strictly from my staff chair, this would be, depending on what the cost factors we get back on the benches and the chairs and or the fang and flower pots and the trash cans. Even when we went up to Travelers Rest, some of the specialty trash cans that we're talking about there, which were really great and they were branded, those were $1,500 a pop.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things we have to make sure we work iteratively with the North Augusta Forward folks and the Main Street program and the Merchant Association to figure out what the one-to-end list looks like from an amenities perspective, what can be accomplished this year, and then what kind of funding wedges we're looking at in the out years, 22 and beyond.
So do we have sort of in the top of your head, Avery, what money we're talking to get kicked off here, or
Well,
not
yeah,
yet?
we priced out the items that we're
Yeah.
talking about. What we need to do is then work with staff to say, what money do we have?
And
How can we?
You talking about y'all staff or city
talking
staff?
about-
City staff.
City staff.
City staff,
Jim
okay,
Say,
okay.
what can we accomplish? Because we don't want to do one itty bitty section and leave the
Yeah,
rest of
rest
downtown
of
out.
it,
We want to
right.
make it a comprehensive
Yeah.
approach. So what does that look like, and
Yeah.
what funds are available? And we would
Well,
look
I think this is wonderful, because my best memories of the city of North Augusta is downtown North Augusta. Riding my bike up and down, People's Drugstore, Kildos, these places are just dear to my heart. But my main thing, and I'll say it till I'm called up there, everybody's included.
And please,
Everybody's
anybody that you
included.
know that wants to be, please let me know. I'm going to email
Well,
you.
I don't say let the, y'all reach out to them.
We are.
Reach out to them.
We are.
And say, look, this is Hope's coming, and we just want to get your feel for it.
Yes, and we definitely are, but it helps for others to
Yeah.
encourage them too. But we meet the first Tuesday of every month at 9 a.m. So
But a lot of times people are intimidated to come to meetings, and we've
Shouldn't
seen
be
that
with
as
us.
it's canceled till now.
they shouldn't be
And
with us.
so,
It's very
they're
informal.
not, it is informal, but not in the eyes of a lot of
I
people.
understand. I
Okay, and
understand.
so I say North Augusta forward, you reach to those people.
And we are. And
Okay,
tell them
good.
Sheila brings donuts and they'll
Yeah.
come.
Okay. But thank you, sounds great.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
I've got just one. Have you had any, and I know it's real early, but any real contact with DOT about what you really can do about traffic calming? Because I know years ago we had an issue with trucks running from I-20 to Highway 1. It was before Palmetto Parkway was in, and we went to them to try to get some help, and what we were told was, you can call it Martintown Road all day long. It's Highway 230, and it's supposed to move traffic.
Right.
And I'm just concerned about you getting the same response about Georgia Avenue, because that's a major artery.
It is, and we are not, I probably should have said this, we're not looking to take the lanes down, or do anything that would impact DOT at this point. We're simply talking about streetscape enhancements and trees, things of that nature that would help visually narrow the road. We are not, at this point, I mean, I'm not saying we wouldn't ever if it was a consensus, but we're not looking to narrow the lanes of traffic or remove a lane of traffic.
And I particularly said that since I saw Representative Hickson walk in, because that's who you need to get with to deal with that.
Yeah,
Well, we definitely have to do it on West Avenue.
yes.
Well, the other thing you might be able to check with DOT on, I mean, again, a lot of people don't realize Georgia Avenue is Business Highway 25. Is there a way to get rid of that designation, since Highway 25 basically is Gordon Highway to Martintown Road up Knox Avenue? I don't even know if it's designated on Broad Street anymore as Business 25. Is there a way to get rid of that, so then it's not maybe that's another avenue to look at it?
Yeah, and people, honestly, a lot of it's just speed. It seems like such a wide open space that people just go faster than they really should and faster than the posted speed limit. But if we can take some measures to try to help that and squeeze them in, then that would be extremely helpful for traffic calming.
But don't squeeze them too much, because you squeeze them too much, then you're gonna lose your businesses coming downtown. So,
Right, yeah, it's a fine line.
No,
but
I've been to many towns, like going to the mountains and other places where it's 4-lane, and then it bottled its neck down to 2 to slow it down. I mean, I see that in a lot of towns. I know y'all were in Travelers Rest. I didn't know if that was the case there, but Rutherford, North Carolina comes to mind. They have the wayfinding signs. We passed through there going to App State a few months ago, and we go through there every year going to the mountains, going skiing, whatever, but there's a little town that got the wayfinding things like we looked at, and it's 4-lane, and then it bottles down where it goes through the downtown into 2 lanes and stays 2 lanes until you're out of the downtown, and then it spreads back out again. So, I mean, it is doable. Now, again, I'm sure Rutherford, North Carolina doesn't get as much traffic as we do over that, but it is definitely something to look into.
yeah, we want the traffic, we just don't want it going quite so fast.
Yeah. All right. All right.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I guess,
Make sure it's not to do with amenities.
so I see the amenities as kind of phase 1. Is there a way that we can, I know through the Main Street plan, continue to have phases brought to council so that we continue moving forward and not missing a couple of years or anything like that? Is there a way that we can
Absolutely.
collaborate in that manner? Yeah.
Yes, I think to Britton's point, working with staff on a memorandum of agreement of what that looks like, what are the priorities, what is North Augusta Forward and Main Street tasked with, what are we working with the city on, because all of this, again, it has to be a collective effort. We don't want to get out in front of the city, and we want to make sure that we're being strategic in everything that we're doing, that it matches your vision as well.
Yeah, I think what Jim and Rachel need to hear from us is 2 things. One, to your point, do you want the Main Street folks to begin to work with staff on what a memorandum of understanding looks like? What is roles, responsibility over the next, years beyond? That's one thing. And then I think the other thing that Jim and Rachel need to hear us say is that we like the amenities, and let them put together, based on adjustment this year, and prepare for us for 2022 what that looks like financially, just what we can do. So, is I'm hearing that correct, Mr. Clifford?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. So, are we getting a consensus
Yeah.
across the board?
I mean, I'll speak. I would certainly like to see movement towards the memorandum of agreement, understanding, whatever it ends up being. And then I would absolutely like to see financially what these things are going to look like, and then we can make a decision on the best course of action and move forward. But I mean, these are things that we need to start working. I mean, to David's point, and blame conversation aside, all that other stuff aside, I mean, whatever's happened in the past has happened in the past. It's time to move forward, and these are things that we really need to start seeing some progress on.
All right, good.
Make it so.
Everybody good?
That's my Star Trek reference. Make it so.
I like it.
Make it so.
Peace, love, all prospering. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. Come out tonight. All right, Ms. Clifford, up to you.
So for the record, I believe I have council's consensus on those two items. We'll move forward on those for discussions on MOU, MOA, and also to figure out what our funding opportunities are for FY21 and to set this as a budget priority, or at least opportunity in FY22. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn at least the initial part of this over to Cammie Hayes, our finance director, talk a little bit about our FY22 budget. And so for some of the council members, this may be old hat, but we have new council members this year, so I want to make sure that we kind of back this out into a much broader stroke, and also to make sure that you all as the council members understand that what we're not asking for tonight are decisions or even input, but this really is an education perspective for you as we head into FY22 budget, so you have a clear understanding of what the staff is doing and then what your inputs are to the staff.
Good evening. It's obvious the finance presentations always have a way of thinning out the crowd, so I was just going to give a few minutes for anyone who wasn't prepared to stay for this presentation. The first slide I have is just a budget calendar. You've already received this. We talked over it briefly, just outlining some dates that you needed to pay attention to. The green arrows pointing to tonight. It's a budget workshop. For us, just a brief discussion. For some of you, it may be refreshers on the budget process, and for others, it may be some new information as we move through this budget process so that you understand the steps that the city goes through. Between Monday, June 28th and Thursday, September 16th, when we submit the proposed budget, it's about a 2.5-week span. And during that 2.5 weeks, staff is undergoing a lot of things behind the scenes. So this plan outlines the steps that staff takes, helps keep us on task, make sure we get you something timely, a balanced budget. We can work through any rate modifications that may need to happen, any ordinance that need to be updated. But what this presentation here will do is kick us off with City Council. We wanted to get ahead of the planning process and give you opportunity to start brainstorming so that if there are priorities such as Main Street and things like that, that those directives are given to administration and staff on the front side, and not when we're bringing a balanced budget and then trying to squeeze your priorities in. So this will be a good chance to get those brainstorms going. We've identified some deadlines as targets for you to submit information, and that'll kind of be delivered at the end of the presentation. But that helps us work on a plan to mirror up staff with council's priorities.
Cammie, if I could just also jump in here because this is new to me as well. And coming out of a federal budget process, you spend all the money they give you by the end of the year, and if you don't get the same amount of money. And obviously, municipal government is very different. So for you all, especially for our new council members, by ordinance, I'm required to present to you a balanced budget. There are other municipalities in the CSRA that don't have that same requirement, and so what you'll see maybe in some other municipalities is an administrator or manager is going to bring you a budget, and then there's they're going to tell you have X number of dollars, and I brought you a budget that's X million dollars plus more, and really turn it back over to council to start whittling down the list on the to-do items. And in that particular model, it's totally fine to have a discussion with council at the last minute about, do we want to have downtown amenities versus do we want to have something else in the city budget. But because we are required to provide a balanced budget, it's much more helpful for us to receive your inputs on the front end of that, to be able to weave that in throughout, so I can present to you a balanced budget. And as we saw last year, we had some discussion on the very margins about a few things, but at the end of the day, it wasn't catastrophic. What's very hard for the staff to react to is, hey, you have a budget request that comes in at the tail end that amounts to hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions. And that just is very hard to rework the entire budget process, especially in September. So that's why we're asking early this year for budget process intakes from the council, so that we can give you the best product possible as we go into there. So just as a kind of municipal government lesson, again, you're going to have different models you'll be able to look at, but our model here in the city of North Augusta is I'm required to present to you a balanced budget as a submission.
What's your time frame you want from us?
I think we've got that here towards the end of the slides.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's July 7th, right?
Yeah. Well,
There you go.
right, yeah, next week.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So this is a good timing also to start this. So you'll recall during 2020 was obviously the height of the pandemic. The city went through its first budget adjustment. We had to pause a lot of projects. We had to decrease revenues due to the ability to gather in large groups. And so then coming off, we were still in pandemic doing the 2021 budget. So we presented you with a flat budget. Essentially, we lost a year. of discretionary funding. You know, we were maintaining what we had, maintaining our staff, maintaining our assets, and really just moving forward. And so this budget is it's a good time to bring these brainstorm sessions to you to see what the opportunities are to add things to our budget. Would also make you mindful of the date of August 31st. So that's that proposed budget completion. That's when administration and we plan on the budget being balanced at that point. And then the lag time up to September 16th is there are 34 funds that have to be printed and consolidated into a budget. So it's not just our operating funds, but we have a lot of special revenue funds, such as the Capital Projects Fund. For an example, the Riverfront Central Quarter Redevelopment Fund. Those are all little funds also that have budgets and things that have to be incorporated. When we do balance the operating funds, we can email a draft of those to you to get your review started. That way you're not waiting until September 16th to get your draft review. It is a draft that is presented to you for the study session purposes. We actually present the proposed budget after those study sessions, and that proposed budget that's not in draft form will be posted to the website. It has a 15-day notice before the city does its public hearing, so there's opportunity for the citizens to review that proposed budget and be prepared to attend the public hearing. I'm going to focus on the general fund. The other operating funds are enterprise funds, so those are rate driven. They function really like a business. So rates determine what expenses we can have. Revenue in equals revenue out. Whereas the general fund has a broader span of what can be used for, and it's broken down into functions, and it incorporates a majority of the city. So this first one is general fund revenues by source of funds. As you may be aware, taxes is the largest source. So that's the blue chunk of the pie on the bottom right of the graph, and equally as important is licenses and permits. A bulk of that licenses and permits, approximately 93%, is driven by business licenses and franchise fees. And that's why the standardization of the Business License Act was so important to the city of North Augusta and other cities across the state, because business licensing is essentially half of our general fund budget, half of our operations. And so you will find this year when we bring you the 2022 balanced budget that we will incorporate the finalized model ordinance by the Municipal Association, and our rates potentially will adjust slightly, but it appears to be to the benefit of business.
Now, those fees and licenses, that's transition, it would just happen the first time, right?
So we got up to speed with getting our businesses classified properly and adjusted rates accordingly, but the Municipal Association is issuing a finalized model ordinance. So the city got up to date with the model ordinance we did in the 21 budget, up to date for the ordinance that had been issued, but they've issued another one.
But that state
that will take
system doesn't take place till next
it begins
year.
in 2022. Mm-hmm. So we are ahead of the game in being prepared, and we'll just adopt the final model ordinance, make a minor modification to the rates to rebalance. It prohibits cities from receiving a windfall of revenue due to the Standardization Act. So we'll tweak the rates, rebalanced. It's currently being reviewed by the Municipal Association for a head nod that we've gone through the rebalancing process appropriately, and then we'll finalize that in the 2022
I know
budget.
you're working hard on that. Thank you.
Yes. Just another note about taxes, property taxes. So there is millage caps, if you weren't familiar with those. It's set by Act 388. Our millage cap for 2021, which we did not use, was 11 mills. And so if you have unused millage from the prior 3 years, you can incorporate that and add it to the current millage cap and total those together. So for 2021, it was an 11 mill cap, but the city did not utilize any of that. Just something to be mindful of. It's not an endless opportunity to raise millage. A little bit more about the general fund, but on the expense side, not revenue. So what do we spend our money on? The blue chunk is personal services, so that's your people. These are your employees and includes compensation as well as benefits. So 70% of the pie is your people. The small purple slice is lease purchase. So that is for our vehicles and equipment. We don't purchase through cash for the large expenditures. We purchase through the lease purchase program. And then the red piece of the pie is O&M, with a small piece of the yellowy lime green for capital that we do purchase outright, such as small equipment and machines. I would want to point out that there's limited room here for discretionary funding. So your people are already, taken care of. The capital lease is something that we've already committed to. The operations and maintenance, even portions of that, are not discretionary because that's where you include fuel, maintenance contracts, professional service contracts such as auditing, legal expenses. We also have goods and services contracts, so our uniforms, equipment contracts, other professional services, development code rewriting, things that are committed to that are being funding. So just to point out the limited discretionary funds that are currently available in the general fund.
So I'd asked Cammie to put together this slide for a couple of reasons. One, for our new council members, but also for our citizens that are here today and also at home, just to give them the sense that, when you look at a general fund budget for the city, there is a large wedge of that, just like when any other municipal or county budget that's not discretionary, meaning that money is already spoken for. We have a limited ability to change anything inside the personal services wedge or even the lease purchase wedge, and only a small portion of the O&M of the city's budget is really what we're talking about. So as we talk to council and get council inputs on things, that's really the red wedge there is really where we're focused on getting council inputs. And unless there's a millage change where you actually grow the entire size of the pie, that if you're dealing with the same budget year to year based on growth, then you've got essentially that wedge that you're talking about with the O&M. So thanks, Cammie.
And in addition to that, we're looking at the level of service we provide. So in order to continue to provide the level of service at the same level that you expect, this would be how the pie looks. If there were to be any shifts in levels of service, there's potential to move the pie, but our understanding has been that you want to maintain the current level of service and then look for opportunities to add to that. And that's been the city's approach to date during the budget process. This is another way at looking at our expenditures, and it's by function. This is how the budget operates when we look for opportunities to fund things is through the functional areas. The biggest piece of the pie is public safety. I think what this functional chart does show is priorities to some extent. That one of your priorities is a safe community, and it's very evident here in the red portion of the pie. Public safety, almost 50% of your general fund budget. The blue portion, which is the second largest portion, is general government. It's a very broad category. There are a lot of things in that function. That's administration, city council, finance, planning and development, our facilities, building standards, legal, property maintenance, human resources, and information technology. So it's not just, city council is not just general government. That is a broad reaching functional category. Parks, recreation, and tourism is the purple portion of that chart, and then public works, that's going to be the portion of streets and drains, engineering, things like that are in that yellow wedge. Street lighting is another piece of that. I'll start this, and I know Jim had some things he wanted to add to this, but this was just a broad picture of where staff was going to make its initial brainstorms towards the budget process. We had heard about the downtown and Main Street initiatives and have that listed as the top priority here on this listing. We've also previously talked to council about the bond rating. You'll recall we had a downgrade of our bond rating, the city's issuance rating, and that we wanted to take initiatives to improve that rating. What are the steps we could take to do that? And we wanted to start incorporating those in the 2022 budget. And so those types of things would include fully funding the 2 mills to the capital projects fund that we started 4 years ago, and do we want to expand upon that to create reserves? We can look at increasing our general fund unrestricted reserves, so increasing money that is not restricted to a particular purpose. It's undesignated. That helps increase bond rating, employee compensation and benefits, maintenance of our current facilities, equipment and infrastructure, and then the director input where they have priorities for their individual departments. The maintenance piece was kind of key when we were looking at it. We've talked a lot about maintenance. We're building a lot of new facilities and amenities, but we also have ones that are currently built that we really need to maintain and need a few maintenance years to get those facilities back up to par so that we don't have increased maintenance costs because of that. And I'll defer over to Jim for anything additional on this slide.
No, thanks, Cammie. And again, this is not to give you an enormous list of what the administration and the staff is looking at. These are just some very broad-based discussion topics that we have. We've not yet received, or asked for our directors to give us their kind of prioritized lists. But these are some of the top 2 things were things that, we've heard from council, actually top three, are things that we've heard from council, previous councils and current council, about, where we ought to focus and things that we're concerned about going forward here with the city. So, we obviously had the discussion about the bond rating, and that previous council had discussed wanting to take concrete steps to doing that, and that's not just a statement. We actually have to take concrete actions to move forward in that. Cammie's laid out what some of those are. And then also we want to take care of our employees. At the end of the day, we've had both current and previous councils talk about retaining the good talent that we have and be able to keep the folks that we have on board that we want, which is all of them. And then we've also talked through in individual conversations about just infrastructure, maintenance, and just keeping a level of service and appearance that we want to have here with North Augusta. So it's apparent when you come into town that you hit North Augusta and not just the rest of South Carolina. Nothing against the rest of the state, but there's definitely when you come across the line in North Augusta, through a number of our gateways, it's apparent. And again, that doesn't happen by accident. That comes through funding and through focus. So again, this is not a comprehensive list, but these are some of the things that we believe we've been tasked to do by councils, and we want to make sure that we're kind of addressing some of those as we go into the next budget cycle.
Jim, real quick before we move on, the fourth thing down there, I see infrastructure. Did we ever find out the strings attached to the federal money? Is that going to be able to pay for some of those things where we wouldn't have to budget as much as that, or do we still not know?
So that depends on what your definition of infrastructure is, Councilman. Currently ARPA, and we've, Cammie and Rachel and I have sat through probably on at least a weekly basis, webinars and seminars from ICMA, MASC, Government Finance Association, and every time we sit in one of those, we learn something new and exciting about how the ARPA money can be used. So ultimately, I think it's safe to say right now what hasn't changed is when they talk about infrastructure and ARPA, they're talking about water, wastewater, stormwater, and broadband infrastructure. Those are all very safe categories. Any of those would survive an audit. But infrastructure for ARPA right now specifically excludes roads, bridges, any of those kinds of pieces of infrastructure, because that was a very deliberate move by Congress because they're trying to pass a secondary infrastructure bill specific to those topic areas. So I think when we talk about infrastructure, the infrastructure that you're going to talk about or we're going to talk to you about in our general fund really has a lot more to do with O&M of the current infrastructure, not necessarily new and exciting infrastructure that would come in.
Okay.
And even major projects for infrastructure when it comes to roads sometimes is funded through the capital project sales tax. So if you look at CPSD 4 today, you're going to see a list of road projects, because that's not just filling potholes. Those are roads where actually we have to completely remove the surface, get to the subsurface, and either rebuild and repave or just repave those roads. But that requires separate and distinct funding just because we'll run out of money quickly on the general fund.
Okay. I saw that word, and it's so broad, and that's why I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, yes, sir. That's I appreciate the opportunity for me to add some clarification for our folks at home.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's go to the next slide.
Okay, moving forward to the final slide. This was just an attempt to streamline and kind of give some target deadlines as we work through the budget process. If you would please submit any brainstorms or priority requests to administration. You can do that through email, give them a phone call. We just wanted to be able to collaborate all of your ideas and not miss any of them and miss any of the priorities that are important to you as we move forward to 2022. And then a summary of these requests and opportunities for funding those requests will be communicated to Mayor and Council. We will do that prior to bringing forward the balanced budget to you to show you the opportunities that we've had and get some immediate feedback before we finalize, just to stay ahead of getting that final budget complete. And then if you have any questions as we go through the budget process, or you're reviewing the budget in more detail as we move forward to the next year, if you'll just submit those questions to administration, they can filter them out. If it's a finance question, certainly can be filtered to me, or if it's a departmental based question, we'll get that sent to the right person. But if you'll just direct those questions there, that way Jim can kind of keep track and make sure we're getting back to everyone and respond to everyone with the answers, because you may have the same question as someone else. So certainly doesn't restrict you from participating in another manner, but was just to try to give you some guidelines and kind of help keep us all on track to meet the budget passing deadline.
And Cammie, there's also no harm in council members communicating directly with each other about priorities and the things you would like to see funded. Because quite frankly, you know, if we as administration receive seven separate and distinct funding requests that have no Venn diagram, if you will, between what those items are, that makes it really hard for us to kind of prioritize and move those forward. When we receive an item that's an important item, a priority item from, say, 5 of the council members, that makes it a lot easier for us to prioritize that action in particular, you know, moving forward. So there's no problem with collaborating with each other ahead of time either. And as we get those products from you all as far as your lists, I'm very attuned to be able to turn those back quickly and give them back to you as well, just so you can see it. I know as we talk about ARPA funding, Councilman Presnell, you know, I'm certainly not the font of every good idea. And as I've been watching ARPA move forward through other municipalities, you know, larger cities and counties that have already received their direct allocation, we're able to pick up some ideas about how they're going forward, and that makes it easier for us to kind of move along our way. So likewise for you all, some other council member may have thought of something you hadn't considered, and that would be good for you all to have those discussions as we go forward.
And just some
Saying
example.
we
oh,
can,
sorry.
like if I had something, I could call every member on council and say, hey, y'all all agree. I mean, because sometimes I'm leery doing that.
I don't think there's any restriction on that. I would defer to, you know, our city attorney, but that's I think in the normal routine of things of one at a time. Yeah, you can't do a 7-member conference call.
So we can't meet at the Waffle House and talk.
I think you can meet with 2 other members at the Waffle House. You just can't get the whole council together.
If you're buying.
Historically, these examples of these have ranged from like a specific amenity request. So I know, Eric, you had mentioned the boat dock recently. So that's a specific amenity request you want to make a priority. Or it can be some type of program that you want considered or something like that. So, you know, kind of think outside the box. You can be narrow focused to a certain amenity type thing, but also broad pictured on policy, programming, and other funding opportunities even. So that's all I had for this evening, unless you have any questions.
Very good, Cammie. Thanks for all your efforts.
Thanks, Cammie.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have from the staff for this evening.
Okay. I don't think I'll just kind of a couple things, make a couple quick announcements. Let folks know on July the 4th, the Living History Park is having an event from noon to 3 p.m. They're going to be, I will be there working with some other folks, and we'll be taking part in reading the Declaration of Independence at 1 o'clock. They're going to have hot dogs and refreshments. The park is open. If you have a dog with a leash, behave. So bring your kids down. It's going to be open. That's on Sunday, July the 4th from noon to 3. Declaration of Independence will be read at 1. Of course, I believe we're sponsoring the Sunday night Green Jacket game, Ms. Clifford, right? So that's fireworks Sunday night. So that's going to be great. And I just ask that y'all enjoy the freedoms this country has provided, our men and women, and thank you for your service on this council. And have a safe 4th of July. Anybody else have anything?
Yes, this might be for Carl. At the splash pad at Riverview Park, I was over that. There was a dog, a huge dog, right near the park. Now, the lady had a big, heavy-duty leash, but she was a very small woman. And so, do we need to put a sign? Because I know there's no animals up on the ball field itself. Put a sign by that, because boy, I looked at that, was very dangerous with those children running and squealing and that dog. So I think we need a sign that says no dogs near the splash pad. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Okay, we stand adjourned.